Have you ever seen a sports champion wake up the next morning with a belly that looks like they haven't trained a single day in their life? Sounds hard to believe, right? But that's exactly what happened to Abigail, a tennis player who had just reached the peak of glory at Roland Garros. And in just a few short weeks, she'd be stepping onto the courts at Wimbledon as the #1 favorite. But between those two tournaments, all it took was one fun night out with an old friend, a few beers, a few slices of pizza, and everything changed. Not just her figure, but the way her body worked, the way her health responded, and the lessons that even an elite athlete sometimes has to learn the hard way. If you think I'm strong, I'm young, a few beers won't hurt, this story might just make you think twice. And I want you to stick around because what comes next will show you something many people only realize when it's already too late. Let me tell you a story, one that might make you smile at first, but then leave you quietly reflecting. Abigail, a young, strong, full-of-life tennis player, had just been crowned champion at Roland Garros. After months of grueling training, she decided she deserved a night out with an old friend. Laughter filled the air, glasses of beer clinked together, and memories flowed as easily as the drinks. But the next morning, Abigail looked in the mirror, chuckled softly, and then frowned. "Oh no, my stomach looks like I'm pregnant." Have you ever felt that way? One party, one moment of letting go, and suddenly your body changes faster than you thought possible. I remember a patient of mine who only drank beer on weekends just for fun, doc, but a few years later, his waistline had grown nearly 10 inches, and he barely realized how it had happened. I want you to picture this: when you consume alcohol, your liver puts everything else on hold to process it first. During that time, fat burning slows down and fat begins to accumulate, especially around the belly. Whether you're an elite athlete or an everyday person, that mechanism doesn't change. The night out may be worth remembering, but your body remembers every beer, every slice of pizza. And one day the mirror will remind you of it too, in a way that's very real, and sometimes a little unforgiving. 2 years is plenty of time for many things to change. But when Abigail and Bridget finally sat down together, it was as if no time had passed at all. They traded stories about travels, tournaments, and even those quiet sorrows they couldn't share with anyone else. The beer in their hands became an excuse for the words to flow, as though they were trying to make up for all the time they'd lost. Have you ever had a friend like that? Someone who, no matter how long you've been apart, feels just as familiar the moment you meet again. But as a doctor, I always remind my patients and myself that those warm, precious moments can sometimes come hand in hand with choices that aren't so kind to our health. I recall a woman 55 years old who reunited with an old friend after many years. They drank glass after glass, not thinking much of it, until her next checkup revealed a spike in blood sugar and cholesterol. Friendly gatherings can still be healthy as long as we know when to stop at the point our bodies can still handle. Friendship is priceless, but health is even more so. And the best part is, we can keep both if we choose wisely. Abigail's coach didn't raise his voice, but the look in his eyes told her this was more than a simple reminder. Wimbledon, the most prestigious tournament in tennis, was only weeks away. Every missed day of training would slow her body just a little, dull her reflexes just a little. And at that level, just a little is all it takes to lose glory. Have you ever felt that when your goal is right in front of you, but fatigue and the lure of short-lived pleasures keep pulling you away? I once treated a 52-year-old amateur player who told me, "Doc, I thought I was just taking a few days off to let my body rest. But when I stepped back on the court, I wasn't myself anymore." Once fitness and form slip away, it takes a long time and a lot of effort to get them back. Think of your body as a finely tuned machine running smoothly only when it's used regularly. Skipping one training session is fine, but skip too many in a row and the gears begin to rust. And in sports, as in life, that rust can sometimes mark the thin line between success and regret. Abigail leaned back in her chair, smiling with confidence. With muscles like these, a few beers are nothing. I've heard that line from so many patients, people who believe that being physically fit will protect them from the effects of alcohol. But the truth is different. Muscles can't block alcohol. Your liver is the one in charge of processing it, and your liver doesn't care if you're an athlete or an ordinary person. Have you ever thought like Abigail? Believing that because you're strong and young, a few beers won't hurt? I once met a 60-year-old man who worked out regularly, his body as toned as it had been at 40. Yet he had high liver enzymes and elevated blood lipids, all because of his Friday night beer ritual. I thought working out would burn off everything I drank, he told me. But the body doesn't work that way. Once alcohol enters your bloodstream, fat burning takes a back seat, and the excess calories are stored quietly, slowly but surely. The problem with overconfidence is that it makes us ignore our body's real limits. And no matter how strong it is, your body deserves to be listened to and respected, not challenged for the sake of proving a point. That night's fun lasted longer than planned. Every beer came with a plate of snacks, fries, salty crackers, a few slices of pizza, all adding up to one massive calorie feast. For an athlete like Abigail, her diet is usually calculated down to the gram. But that evening, every number was forgotten, and the feeling of eating without limits brought a very human kind of pleasure. Have you ever been like that? Eating and drinking between laughter and stories only to lose track of how much you've had. I once had a patient, a former competitive swimmer. He told me, back when I was competing, every calorie I ate was burned off in the pool. But after I retired, I kept eating the same way, and my weight shot up in just a few months. With beer, the risk is even greater. Alcohol doesn't just bring empty calories with no vitamins or minerals. It also puts your liver's fat-burning process on pause. The result: all those snack calories get stored quickly. One night of fun can leave its mark on your waistline longer than you think. And for an athlete, that's not just a matter of appearance. It's a trade-off that can cost performance on the court. After months of intense training, Abigail told herself, "I've just won Roland Garros. I deserve a relaxing night." She picked up her phone, texted Bridget, her best friend she hadn't seen in ages. And just minutes later, the plan was set: a carefree evening, no thoughts of training, no thoughts of her diet. Have you ever treated yourself like that? After a period of hard work, we often allow ourselves to loosen up. And that's perfectly normal, even necessary. But I always remind my patients that the line between resting wisely and letting go completely can be surprisingly thin. I remember a yoga teacher in her 50s who once confided in me, "Doctor, I eat and train very strictly until my teaching term ends. Then I reward myself with a week of indulgence and end up spending the next month trying to get back in shape." The body, especially past 40, reacts more slowly to changes and takes longer to recover. What Abigail didn't know was that her fun night with Bridget would bring not just laughter, but also open the door to another story, one she'd see clearly the next morning staring back at her from the mirror. Even if you're an athlete, your body still follows the non-negotiable laws of biology. When beer, or any alcoholic drink, enters your system, the liver immediately puts alcohol metabolism at the very top of its to-do list. In that moment, fat burning is put on hold. It's like a factory shutting down its main production line just to handle one urgent order. And while the line is idle, any excess energy from your food gets stored away. And the most convenient storage unit happens to be your belly. Have you ever noticed how your waistline betrays you faster than any other part of your body? I once had a patient, a retired marathon runner, who told me, "My legs stay lean and strong, but every holiday season my belly still pops out." It's not that he was eating more with his belly. It's that the body naturally prioritizes fat storage there where it's easy to stash and very easy to spot. The fascinating and worrying thing is that you might still feel healthy, agile, and energetic, all while visceral fat quietly builds up. This doesn't just alter your shape, It's directly tied to higher risks of heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. And your liver, no matter how resilient, can't keep covering for you if it's forced into emergency shifts every night because of alcohol. Abigail had just stepped off the court at Roland Garros, the glittering trophy in her hands as the applause rolled over her like waves. She knew she was at the very peak of her game, and the entire tennis world was watching. Wimbledon was only a few weeks away, and every newspaper, every commentator had her name pinned as the #1 contender for the title. But have you noticed? The moment we achieve something great is often the moment our guard slips the most. I once treated a 58-year-old golfer who had just won a regional championship. He told me I figured I'd earned a break, and then I took a little too long of one. When he returned to the course, his swing wasn't as sharp as before. Our bodies, especially after 40, require steady, consistent upkeep. Skip 1 week, and sometimes you pay for it with a month of training just to get back. Abigail knew this, but she was human too. She wanted to savor the sweet taste of victory. And it's exactly in that space, between the glow of triumph and the challenge ahead, that unexpected stories often begin. Stories no training manual could ever prepare you for. After an intense training session, your body is like a field that's just been harvested. The soil is dry, minerals are depleted, and every cell is thirsty. At that moment, what your muscles need most is pure water and electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and magnesium, not beer. I remember a 54-year-old patient, an amateur cyclist. After every long ride, he and his friends would knock back a few beers to quench their thirst. At first, he thought it was a well-earned reward for the effort he'd put in. But within just a few months, he began experiencing frequent cramps, slower muscle recovery, and a clear drop in performance. Tests later showed he had a serious electrolyte imbalance. Have you ever been in that situation? Thinking you're refueling your body but actually draining it even more, beer not only fails to rehydrate you effectively, it actually makes you lose more water through urination. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. All your effort just leaks away. For your muscles, every hour after training is a golden hour for recovery. Miss it, and the rebuilding process slows down, making future workouts less effective. It's a quiet cost, but a very real one. You see, just one night of letting loose can leave a lasting mark on your body, whether you're an athlete or just an everyday person. True health doesn't come from big, explosive moments, but from the small choices we repeat day after day. If Abigail's story made you think or reminded you of someone you know, I want you to do something right now. Hit like to support this channel. Subscribe so you won't miss the next health stories and insights, and share so a friend of yours can get this message too. And I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a fun night only to have your body teach you a lesson the next morning? Leave a comment below, because your story could be the reminder thousands of others need. I'll see you in the next video, where I'll tell you a story even more surprising than this one.